All right, I think that's our cue to begin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, everyone. And we're so happy to have you for our session, Beyond Buzzwords, Building Real AI Capability at Work. This is the second series in our AI Academy series. We did the first one in May, where we spoke about the frameworks that we use, the simulations that we have, and today is a follow through for that. For those of you that are joining in for the first time, do let us know if you want to see the first series as well. We'll be happy to share the link with you. I will hand over to my colleague, Aman, now to take us through the introduction.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Khyaati. I can see we are at the mark. Maybe I'll give it another 15 seconds while others are joining in. But
Okay.
in the between, maybe we do a little bit of tech check while people are still starting to trickle in. So if you can hear my voice clearly, please give me a thumbs up. You can use any emoji that you like, but that will tell me if you can hear my voice clearly. Awesome. I can see a few hearts and thumbs up going. Second is if you can see Khyaati's screen, again, do a similar emoji. And thirdly, and the most important, if you're ready to learn, have some fun, get some takeaways, both from our sides, but also from each other. We have the chat open throughout the webinar. There's a lot of thought leadership in this room. Your people are joining in from different industries, different backgrounds. We can all learn from each other. So let's make this an interactive session. While we do have Q&A at the end, but feel free to have the chat running throughout. Awesome. So this is a quick agenda of today's webinar. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll cover most of these topics. For some of you who are aware of KNOLSKAPE, but there are quite a few who might not be. So for them, we have a quick introduction to KNOLSKAPE. We'll then talk about AI fluency versus confidence, and more importantly, bring you some best practices that we are seeing at our end in our experience of working with different organizations across APAC on how you can leverage some of these at your organizations or even at your personal place, followed by Q&A. But like I said, if you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll pick them up towards the end. Before I go ahead, quick introduction. My name is Aman Singh Kohli. I'm the Chief Business Officer for KNOLSKAPE here in Asia Pacific. And today I have the honor of also being joined by my colleague, Khyaati. Khyaati, for our audience here, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Absolutely. Thank you, Aman. So everyone, I work very closely with Aman at KNOLSKAPE, largely looking at product and strategic initiatives, and we will be co-hosting this webinar for you today.
Great. So what I'll do is I'll take probably the first section and then I'll hand over to Khyaati. But for those who are not aware about KNOLSKAPE, just a quick 30,000 feet introduction. We are the world's largest experiential learning technology company. So the important here is the problem that we are trying to solve is building future readiness. The way we do that is through our digital simulations using these experiential learning technologies. We are a global company present across 5 different locations across the world, which is US, UK, India, Malaysia, and Singapore, and now entering Indonesia as well. But in other countries, in approximately 20 plus other countries, we work through a large partner network. In addition to our self-paced digital offerings, our simulations can also be taken in workshop formats, and we have this huge network of 500 plus facilitators, coaches spread across the world who bring our simulations to life in a workshop format. Of course, being a global organization, our simulations are also translated into multiple languages, especially here in APAC, where language is a big concern. We do have simulations translated in Vietnamese, in Bahasa, in Korean, and Mandarin. The reason a lot of companies like to work with us, over 400 plus global organizations, you'll see a few of their logos on the screen or towards the left. While those logos are important, the other important factor to notice is that you'll see a good mix of organizations across industries, which means our simulations are industry agnostic. So you'll see a few financial services, but you'll also see consulting, you'll also see manufacturing. Every year, through these simulations and through these organizations that we work with, we engage with over 500,000 learners. And we've had the honor of being recognized by some leading global institution for some of the top awards. In fact, a couple of years ago, Harvard Business Review did a case study on how KNOLSKAPE is transforming learning dynamics. Now, given with our work across these organizations, we also generate a lot of data. Basis that when we work with companies, we help them build future-ready skills. Right? If I can go to the next slide. What we really mean when it comes to building a future-ready organization, what we are seeing is that broadly, future-ready organizations are divided into two buckets. On the left hand are the ones who focus on learning and building the core skills. And on the right-hand side are performance and contextual skills. Let me cover what core skill entails, right? So these are skills that are present throughout. Every organization, irrespective of industry, is struggling with building some of these core skills. These could be across leadership, digital and AI readiness, as well as culture readiness. So, for example, hypo identification, leadership coaching, digital mindset, AI awareness, all of these are problems that every organization is struggling with at some level of the other. For this, we have our regular off-the-shelf simulations, which we call as part of our passport model, where you can plug and play this and help your organization build future skills around these topics. And then a lot of organizations also tell us that, when it comes to the performance aspect, we're also struggling with building what they call contextual skills, right? Which is related to either their organization, their domain, or their role, right? So imagine you have a company-wide initiative around compliance or well-being. Now that is very specific to a particular organization in a particular industry. Similarly, if you have something like a sales process training, it differs from one bank to the other. So for example, here in APAC, the way Maybank does their sales training is going to be very different than how a CIMB does it, right? Here we use our Genie platform to build custom simulations which are contextualized in your environment. If I can go to the next slide. Right. So that was a very brief overview of KNOLSKAPE. Before we actually start up the webinar, we'd love to hear from you. And I know Khyaati has a quick poll or maybe a quick couple of polls up next for you.
Absolutely. So we have a two-part poll coming up, everyone. And the poll essentially is just to understand where you are in your journey with implementing AI. Of course, Aman and I speak to clients day in and day out about their challenges, about what's going on, but we really want to understand on this call what's going on. And I see there's an overwhelming yes as of now, with 95%, 96% of everyone on the call that's working on implementing AI in their organization.
Not surprising at all, Khyaati. I don't think there's been a single meeting that I do, either virtual or in person, where AI or Gen AI doesn't get mentioned.
I agree. And I'm increasingly seeing that in Asia, specifically APAC, I think as a region is very open, very curious to experimenting with this technology and really harnessing its gains as well.
Yeah.
All right. I think we have crossed the 1 minute mark. We'll share the results with you as well so you can see what's happening. We had about 91% yeses and 9% no's.
That's
So
a
everyone,
majority, Khyaati.
absolutely. And everyone in the audience, just to keep the chat alive as well, to tell us what you're doing in L&D, maybe in your organization as well. What are the different best case practices you have? And if you're not doing anything, why you're not experimenting with AI, we'd love to hear from you. All right. We have another poll coming up. This is just for us to understand as L&D, do you know what's happening with AI? Do you know how to use it yourself? Do you know how your teams are using it? Aman, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. I think it's important for us as L&D to also understand what are use cases outside of L&D as well for AI. What do you think?
Absolutely. So before actually the use cases, I'd love to see, what the poll results say. Anecdotally, I was in Malaysia speaking at a conference last week, where I was talking about the seven deadly sins of AI. And across my chats, I think one thing came out that, to our first poll, while everybody or majority is experimenting with AI, a lot of people are still struggling with the implementation part of it. So I'd love to see if this poll reflects the same thought flow as well here.
Right, we have ended the poll. So L&D, I think in general, Aman does have a rough idea of what's going on within their organizations, which I think is a good place to be. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think L&D at least has taken the lead on building the awareness skills. They've sort of also run a few pilots within L&D functions. So I do get to see a lot of interest there. I think the challenge is how do you scale these pilots from L&D to other functions and then across the organization?
I agree, I agree. And I think especially with global organizations, where there's cultural differences, there are teams across borders, it becomes a little bit more challenging. And Aman, for this webinar, honestly, we've been doing a lot of thought leadership around AI. Obviously, our journey internally as well with the product has led us to certain breakthroughs with AI. But I think for this specific webinar, instead of giving gyan, as it were, I wanted to really take the knowledge that we already have and try and simplify it for those of us that might be struggling. So we'll use a fun analogy to do this, right? So let's imagine everyone on this call, you walk into office, for those of you that are working remotely, you actually have an office now near your house. You go in every day and one day specifically, you happen to cross your company parking lot, right? And as you enter the parking lot, you're wondering, hey, why do all my colleagues suddenly have cars? This parking lot used to be empty, but now it's packed. I'm seeing my colleagues' names on the boards and they've got cars parked under them, right? And you're a little confused because you're like, hey, wait, they don't drive. Especially for someone like Aman who's in Singapore, I'm assuming this is very true. Right. And as you're walking by, you realize there's just an array of cars, all the way from, starter cars like a Fiat, maybe a Maruti, to, Bentleys and Lamborghinis. And you're like, wow, this is interesting. But you're also confused. You're like, I know they don't drive cars. So why do they have cars? So you decide to head into work and ask around and just inquire from your colleagues out of curiosity why suddenly everyone has a car parked in the parking lot. And you go and your colleagues are all standing together, they're having a chat in the morning, and you go join them and you ask them, hey guys, did you notice there's a lot of cars in the parking lot? What's going on? And your colleagues say, yes, the organization has given all of us cars. We're all expected to drive them now. And you start asking, okay, how did you learn how to drive cars? And one of your colleagues says, I've just been watching a lot of YouTube videos, and I'm hoping I'll pick that up from watching YouTube videos, right? And you're like, does that work? I'm not sure. Another colleague comes in and says, hey, I've been asking people on Reddit for help. I've been getting a lot of helpful tips, and I'm going to try them out today when I'm going home. Another one of your colleagues says, my manager says it's important, it's a strategic imperative that we all learn to drive cars. My manager gave me a quick tutorial, so I'm ready. I'm going to drive my car today. And the fourth one says, and this is quite concerning, I'm not even sure what good driving looks like. So I'm just going to figure it out on the street on the way back home. And at this point, you walk back to your desk and you realize all your colleagues have skipped driving school, which I think I don't need to tell anyone is very, very problematic, right? It's time to go home. It's 5 p.m. and everyone is a little nervous. They're like, okay, we have to drive back, but they're all heading towards their cars. And you might not know how to drive yourself, but you know what happens when people don't get certified when they skip driving school. You're in trouble, right? And this is exactly what you see when you're driving back from work. You have one person that's kind of driven away. They've escaped the carnage. There's a few people that have just parked their cars on the side. They don't know what to do with it. Some of them have stopped midway, and there's a few small crashes as well, right? And the reason we brought up this analogy is because AI tools are a lot like cars. right? You have to understand the technology in order to be able to use it, and then you can use any car depending on your skill level, right? And the problem for us isn't access. It's honestly knowing how to drive the car and practicing how to drive that car. But and Aman, please come in here. What's happening is that a lot of us have actually skipped driving school. So we've skipped the simulation, the learning, the test itself, and now we're just using AI without any know-how or any benchmark really of how it needs to be done.
Right. I love the analogy, Khyati. So, like you said, you'll see maybe a couple of people who will ace it from the go, but just like in this analogy, it will lead to a lot of crashes, a lot of broken lampposts, a lot of insurance claims. The same is with AI, right? I don't think, like you said, the problem is access. Every organization now has given some form of access to people, but a lot of people have skipped the safe simulation part of it on how to use these tools and are also using it irresponsibly, which could lead to problems like leakage of data, sensitive data, lawsuits for organizations, which are a bigger headache. So of course, extremely concerning, and that's why we say that, look, AI tools, before you actually start practicing them, learn to practice them in a safe environment so that these repercussions are something you can manage later on.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And I think it's also just that mindset or that muscle of being able to use that new technology effectively that that learning or that repeated reinforcement helps build, as you'd see with pilots, with sportsmen, with people that drive cars as well.
Yeah.
Um, Now, Aman, this next slide is interesting because through all the conversations that we've had, as partners, while we're consulting with clients, the different problem statements that business heads and L&D professionals have given to us, we've kind of looked at those, right? And we went back in time and we realized that this issue with tech that we're having right now with implementing AI, it's actually not new, right? It started with Excel spreadsheets in 1980s. It was new technology. Everyone was scrambling to learn more about it. And I mean, I don't have to tell you this. I think a lot of us still don't know how to use pivots. And for us, just making a beautiful spreadsheet with different colors and fonts is good enough, right? So it started there. This one again, ERP systems, I think in the 1990s, early 2000s, a lot of companies started rushing to SAP, Oracle, Salesforce to start implementing new CRMs. And McKinsey did a very interesting study in 2012 where they said that 70% of all CRM and ERP implementations between the time that they were introduced till 2012 had failed. Right. And
Wow.
they estimated that hundreds of millions of dollars were lost. I think the only people that made money were SAP and Oracle in all of this. I just, for all the audience and also for Aman, why do you think these implementations failed? Can you take a wild guess?
Yeah. So I completely resonate with this. I think for those of you who are already calculating my age, I'm not that old, but I was part of this generation when these ERP systems went into play. And the promise was saving hundreds of dollars from moving from on-premise to on-cloud. But like Khyati said, almost 70% of the implementations failed. Not because the access was not there. Everybody had access to an SAP system, Oracle system, but people just didn't know how to use it. So the skills were not built. They didn't have the capability to know how to do this. And that resulted in a lot of failure. So while, yes, there was cost saving from moving from on-premise to on-cloud, but there was an even bigger loss because the skills weren't really there.
Absolutely. And it was essentially a capability issue for most of these companies. Just not enabling people to use the system effectively led to this. We've seen more recent examples that I think a few of you on the call might also resonate with. I think a lot of marketing professionals in the early 2010s rushed to Facebook, now Meta, to start social media marketing for their products, for their companies. And for the longest time, we couldn't figure out what Facebook's algorithm was. I think we had a quick breakthrough, a small breakthrough during COVID, where people were, the creator economy boomed, and you saw Instagram kind of be used as a tool to do marketing. But for most bit, I think a lot of marketers will say that we jumped on the bandwagon. There was FOMO around how to use Facebook and Meta for marketing, but a lot of them have still haven't figured this out. It's expertise that remains very niche even now. And that brings me to the last one, AI, right? Or artificial intelligence as we know it now, which I think started in 2022, started to gain traction in 2022. But it has created almost this illusion of capability where we think we know how to use it. A lot of organizations are still experimenting, still figuring it out. But Aman, what's also happening is, in my opinion, I think this FOMO that we're seeing with AI and this rush to implement it, it's a lot louder. It's a lot more than it was in the past with any of these new technologies. So I wanted to get your thoughts as well and understand, why do you think that's happening? Why is the world scrambling suddenly?
Yeah. And this was very interesting. I was again last week at the ET conference in Singapore. On my panel were, the CHRO of Changi Airport as well as the CHRO of Capital and Investment. And we had a great discussion around this. I think what's really changing in the business landscape compared to previous is the speed of business and how quickly AI has accelerated that change. So yes, change was happening. There was always automation through the 90s to the 2000s. But in the last few years, ever since Gen AI has come in, the speed of change is sort of really accelerated. It's got like what we call a nitro booster, right? Uh, if you look at some of the product companies, right? Earlier, a product release or a product refresh would take anywhere between 18 to 24 months. Now, literally within 6 months, a competitor can not only copy your product, but they can also beat you, right? So that's how quickly things change. What this means is companies need to are becoming more agile when it comes to these changes. But the reality is that while strategy can pivot overnight, people and skills cannot, right? So you still need to build those skills. And ultimately, we are not building those skills fast enough to keep pace with this change. And that's really where, this is really being felt as compared to previous, these other three areas, which we again went through transformation.
Absolutely, I agree, I think. And in this case, we've realized, especially with the audience in Asia, I think mindset is not necessarily the issue at this point. It's literally building that confidence to be able to use it. And because it's become a strategic imperative, suddenly you are seeing a lot of junior and mid level employees who are saying, okay, no, I know how to do this, I'll figure it out, which is almost just like a mirage. It's like an oasis in the desert that doesn't exist, and you're running after it, right? And we see this happen a lot when we step in, right, Aman, and we have conversations where L&D and business heads will be saying something about implementing AI, and we're like, 1 second, I don't think that's going to work. Let's help you unpack that. So I also wanted to just recap that with the audience today very quickly before we move into our solution. Um, for example, and I'm sure a lot of you on the call also have seen this, right? Where tech teams will give you paid access to an LLM. So your data is being stored and the model might not be trained on your data itself. But Aman, in your experience, do you think that just giving access has, for anyone in the last few years, worked on helping with adoption or helping with new use cases for that tool?
Not necessary. So, like, again, going back to the car analogy that you showed, right? Access, again, isn't the problem.
Yeah.
There will still be these, initial adopters that I call it, who will sort of master it on their own and start to use it and figure out along the way. But for the rest, majority of us, it still takes time to build that practice, to build those skills, to understand what are the different use cases. Forget even going to the use cases, even the ability to communicate to people in your organization what those use cases could be is a challenge, right? And that's what we are essentially seeing is that AI adoption is happening in small pockets, but it is literally dying down because people really can't communicate what the benefits are within their department or outside their department as well.
Absolutely, I agree. I think just access doesn't lead to innovation. I think there has to be other support. And that brings me to my next point, where a lot of L&D and HR teams come to us and say, "Our people are curious, so that's good, they will learn." Right? Without actually providing too much support for that learning. In your experience, Aman, what's happening in such organizations where they're just banking on curiosity to kind of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, great question, Kathy. So I was speaking to this VP HR of a large retail organization in Singapore last week. And essentially, same thing. They said, our people are we have a great learning culture. They're very curious. And, I asked them, okay, great. And I'm sure you'll cover this. We've launched recently one of our AI simulations, right? So I was showing that to him and, I said to his one down, hey, there's a simple question. Can you tell me what is AI and how are you using it in your organization? And his one down literally couldn't articulate it well enough, right? So that is where the challenge comes. I think most organizations have got people from Google, Microsoft, OpenAI to come and deliver a talk on that, but it's literally stopped at that. And again, learners really don't know how do they apply this at work.
That's my next point. And it's very interesting that you brought that up, where a lot of organizations, even those that are already using AI in their product and their tech teams are far ahead. So it's not really a knowledge issue anymore within the org, right? They're saying, hey, our tech team came in at a one-off workshop, or we got a facilitator to come in and do a workshop with everyone else, and that's enough. People will start using it. And there, Aman, again, your thoughts. Are you seeing that tool usage is still an issue, innovation is still an issue? Because my read is that I don't think a workshop or one session is enough.
Absolutely. And again, Khyaati, the landscape is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
Most of us probably know of ChatGPT at maximum, but even within ChatGPT, there are multiple models that give very different results, and people don't even know that. Forget about different tools, right? And every day there is a new AI tool that's being released that probably gets your work done faster, leads to better productivity, but people don't know or are not even aware of them. Forget about knowing how to use them.
I agree. And I think Nilesh had a very interesting comment in the chat where he said that there are actually gains like reduction in customer, in cost for retaining customers, creating a sense of urgency to catch up, productivity. And his point to our last slide was this is not just a tech trend, it's actually a strategic enabler if used correctly. And I think that wording or that articulation is spot on, Nilesh.
Yeah, even I don't know if you read the next comment by Thomas, right? What a lot of what he's saying is also relevant to other people because a lot of organizations are resistant to implementing this for various reasons. And that's actually leading to a lot more decrease in productivity or no gains in productivity.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's an offshoot to the topic, but Aman, what I've noticed is I think, and I mentioned this earlier as well, APAC is a little bit more amenable to that change. We're a little bit more open to the innovation and the enablement that AI brings. But when I speak to stakeholders and partners in different parts of the world, like Europe and North America, there's still a lot more trepidation. There's still a lot more anxiety. That's coming into the mix. So we are seeing that this part of the world is a little bit more open to change almost.
Yeah. I would say again that's happening in pockets, Khyaati. So, for
Yeah.
example, I'm in Singapore right now. Singapore is probably at the forefront of AI innovation. The
Yeah.
government is pulling a lot of innovations to, boost AI usage. The challenge that's happening is while the government is doing this, a lot of Singapore firms are still headquartered out of Europe and the US, and essentially there is a blocker there, which is also leading to a slowdown in adoption here. Uh, but that said, the local organizations here, definitely, I think some of the concerns are not that relevant here, and we are actually seeing some usage happen in maybe the local organizations or other APAC-centric organizations.
That's a very interesting point. I think how your organization functions globally also has bearing on how the system works. But just others on the call as well, help us understand if your company or your organization is using AI. You as L&D and HR, how are you enabling others to start doing this? I think L&D does play a very imperative role in that. But as we get those responses in, I think, again, something that comes up on conversations a lot for me is we're experimenting, and that's exactly what we want to do. And I think the challenge with that, Aman, is that experimentation doesn't necessarily lead to outcome, and that's fine in certain cases. But here, where we're stretched for time and budgets, I think it's very important for us to define the scope of that exploration that we're doing with AI as well. What are you seeing? What's your read on what's going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. And I would say this thought last sentence captures exactly what we've been saying. Almost everybody has run some form of AI pilot, which is a form
Yeah.
of experimentation. But what's not happened is the capability hasn't been built. The thought process into making sure that people, before they actually put a pilot into usage, they can simulate sort of that scenario hasn't been done. And hence, it's also leading to a lot of failures. And if the pilot is unsuccessful, it overall then trickles down and doesn't lead to more AI adoption in the organization. So it's like a spillover domino effect that's happening. Uh, and of course, lots of valid concerns that organizations have around, how data is being stored, used, etc. Learners cannot distinguish that. And if, they tend to leak some sensitive information, it again puts a clamp down on the entire AI use case in the organization.
I think we saw that with Samsung last year, right? There was some data that got out by mistake, and then suddenly there was like a whole clampdown in the consumer durable space
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
AI.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? Aman, the other issue that I'm seeing currently with training for AI is that that one workshop, of course, that's happening. The other approach is, okay, I'll just train everyone on the same thing. And so far as where some L&D professionals are coming and saying, hey, you got to teach everyone how to code, right? Everyone has to know how to learn, has to know how to read X number of lines of code in Python and debug it. And literally what I've been telling a lot of L&D professionals is you don't have to send all your employees to a Formula One school. Just coming back to that analogy, not everyone needs to know how to drive the fastest, most powerful car. I think there has to be some differentiation on a level and role basis in terms of what kind of training we're also giving and receiving for AI.
Yeah.
So the analogy that we have here, Aman, and do step in. Individual contributors they need to know basic AI fluency, at least for now, right? For the foreseeable future, they just need to know how to ride on a road, in the city. Then we come to managers. Here, they need to be a little bit more nuanced with their understanding. So critical thinking, driving productivity, advocacy for AI, scenario planning with AI. Almost like someone who knows how to drive on the road and is now doing highways or off-roading with a slightly more powerful car. And then you have your CXOs and VPs, your leaders within the organization that obviously have to be very good drivers, need to understand the basics of driving, but their role essentially is to control and manage the roads, control and manage the traffic, make sure there are no pileups, there's no accidents, the signals are working okay. So they're really setting the tone for what's happening within the organization. And Aman, that's what we did when we also imagined the product at KNOLSKAPE, where we looked at the different capabilities required at different levels and almost built the simulation around those as well. What are your thoughts on having this sort of tiered training? Do you see organizations do it? Do you recommend it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something that also happens in every meeting that I go into in Asia Pacific is that, probably the first stage has been done where people have been given that talk by Google, Microsoft, they've covered some aspects of it. But then when you actually want to build, AI programs within the organization, every company wants to do it role by role. And I think that's where you are coming from as well, right? That's the input we got from the market, which is what we then built into our product. Because the use cases for each of these audience by levels is going to be very different. You will definitely not expect your, CHRO or CLO to navigate a local road because, they're more focused on the
Yeah.
strategic of implementing AI within the organization, driving it forward. And again, the use case for a manager is going to be very different. So absolutely, this is exactly what I'm hearing. And I think that's what's resonated into our product as well.
I agree. And Aman, Sharon had a very interesting point where she says that organizations that are really just starting out with basic fluency, should they move into role by role training immediately or have some sort of primer almost to build basic fluency? What are your thoughts, Aman? How would you approach this problem if
Yeah.
this came to you?
Yeah. So if I would say again, similar analogy, this time I would say it's like building a house, right? You don't start with the roof first. you always start with the base and make sure that base is strong enough. So make sure everybody goes through. So when it says say individual contributors, it doesn't mean only individual contributors will do basic AI fluency. That is relevant for everything, right? We saw it in the past as well when digital transformation was happening. Everybody needed to get into basics. And then, of course, people started getting into more specializations and, practitioners took their own fields and set their own paths. That's exactly what's going to happen here as well.
I agree. I think just starting with basic fluency for everyone, and once everyone has mastered those, moving into role specific use cases would be the approach that I would recommend as well. Now, moving to the product itself, I did want to give everyone a screenshot of the 3 products that we have at the 3 different levels. So very similar to what you saw on the last slide, right? When we conceptualized and envisioned the AI Academy, of course, it was something that we thought would grow through time. But to start off with, the intention was to have 3 levels of simulations for 3 different capabilities, 3 different learner levels almost, where AI Edge, the simulation for anyone who's just looking to understand what is AI, understand fluency, and identify areas where there are ethical boundaries, there's good and bad judgment with AI, but in the context of the work that they are doing, right? And there's obviously a little undertone of how would I communicate this with my peers, with my manager as well. It's interesting because a lot of organizations we work with, honestly, they actually use AI Edge as an assessment if they're further along in their journey, just to benchmark and see where everyone in their organization is. And more often than not, we do find that the 4 skills that are being tested within the simulation, 1 or 2 might be lacking for even senior leaders within certain organizations. And that's when we come in and we help with, okay, what does training look like? Or L&D takes it forward in their teams respectively and says, okay, these are areas where we need to work on. Then we've got AI Elevate, which is level 2. This is for managers, team leaders, anyone that's really driving performance within the organization, right? I think they're not building the strategic imperative, but they're really executing it for the organization. And that's where AI Elevate comes in, where the focus is on change management, empathy-led change leadership, in the context of AI. So how you're dealing with anxiety, how you're dealing with people coming in and having different thoughts and feelings, people coming in and saying, I'm faster than AI, I don't want to use this. Like, how do you deal with such people in your organization? How do you get them to start using this technology? And the last one, of course, is AI Leader. Slightly more niche because it is for a more senior audience. Here, the intention is for the learner to really take on the role of a senior leader within the simulation, where they're looking at AI and technology and its alignment to business, the kind of outcomes you're expecting, the kind of investment, risk and reward of that investment into AI. So really, really high level stuff where you're deciding which way the organization would go. And in all of these simulations, we're really helping the learner in that environment and in that moment decide what works and what doesn't, almost as they would at work. And that's what we'd be showing you in the demo as well. So Aman, for this demo, what I did was at the last webinar, we did AI Elevate as the demo, and we really showcased that to the audience. This time I wanted to show everyone AI Edge. So for the demo itself, everyone in the audience, what's going to happen is I'm going to use a wireframe first to really set the context in the interest of time. Right, once I've done that, I've shown you what the simulation looks like. We'll actually move into the simulation, and I'll try and play a scenario out, and I'd love for you to give me your answers in the chat, and just engage with the simulation through Aman and I. And if you like it, if you want to try it for yourself, then our team will obviously help you and set that up for you. So I'll just very quickly share my screen again.
And I'm really looking forward to this one, Khyaati. I've seen it in 1,000 demos by now when I speak to organizations. So always
Absolutely.
to see.
Absolutely. So the simulation is AI Edge. And just for everyone on the call, you might see a little bit of a lag on the screen. Please bear with me. I'm using a very old system. So the audio and video lags sometimes. It's not the tech itself. So in this simulation, what happens is you're essentially joining a fictional organization. You're taking on a fictional role. So it really is in this day in the life of format where you're getting to step into the role of someone that's working actively with AI, and you're thrown problem statements throughout the simulation that you have to solve with your peers, with your manager within this organization. So we'll start with an introduction of the organization. Sorry about that.
Hi Mel, good day. I'm Nora, your HR manager. As you know, Novatech is a top professional services firm that provides innovative, value-added solutions to help businesses across industries become future ready.
So we introduced the organization to you. In this case, you're working at Novatech, which is a tech-forward company.
Hi, Remy. You've been a part of Quantum Vertex QV for 8 years and have been doing a fantastic job of managing manager digital transformations. We want you to lead QV's AI Readiness Initiative and encourage the adoption and implementation of A-Assist across different business units. The decisions you make as part of your role will help create a meaningful impact leading to organizational growth.
In this case, your company already has an AI product, they're implementing it, they're seeing challenges with implementation, so you're stepping in to support that implementation. What you'll notice on my screen now is essentially the whole team that you'd be working with. So throughout this simulation, you actually are interacting with AI avatars that you see here, right? So if you're Remy, you'd be meeting with all the others. And the interesting part is all of them actually have very different personas, have very different personalities. So just like you would at work, where people have different thoughts and feelings about new things that are happening, some might resist it, some might be very forward in adopting it, you'll see the same thing here. And the challenge is through all problem statements, also managing these different stakeholders and getting them on board. Now, each simulation that we have is built on two key layers, right? You've got your skills that are being tested, which show up in the report after the simulation. And you also have two objectives that you have to meet within the simulation. At the start of the simulation, you do see the minimum score that the simulation recommends you get, right? So in this case, it's 70% for the AI analyst score and 4 out of 5 on the AI communicator score. However, if in the time of the simulation, you're not able to meet these objectives, you're not getting a 70 and a 4 out of 5, that's fine. A lot of times your learners can come back, see what they've done not so well within the simulation, and then replay it as well to see if they can get that score. So it's not a win-lose situation. It's how well can I do within this time that's given to me within this scenario that I'm working in. So I'll start the simulation, give you a sense of the look and feel of the UI UX, and then I'll move into one of the scenarios that I've picked out for you. So for those of you that are new, that haven't played a simulation before, we do try and make sure that the user interface and the ecosystem that you're working in is easily accessible. You're able to understand it. You're able to use it effectively. We also have different levels of gamification within the simulation. So outside of getting a detailed report at the end, you also can be ranked against your peers. So L&D folks on the call, if you're looking to run this as a group, you can actually have the groups compete with each other. We're looking to do this with one of the organizations that we're working with now, almost like a championship around AI to see who does well and who doesn't. And all the information that was given to you earlier, you can access that also during the simulation. So if you've forgotten something like your role, about the organization, your objectives, you can go back and see that. And the simulation can be exited at any point. You can come back if you feel like you want to take a break and come back to it. It doesn't time out. You just start wherever you stopped. And as I was saying, the simulation follows a day in the life of format. So it really mimics what a modern worker goes through during the day at work. So you're getting emails, you have messages coming in on Slack from your different coworkers, and you're also getting into these Teams meetings where different people are then communicating their thoughts and you get to record your response. So it really does mimic how we make decisions on the go. There are different input and output formats within the simulation. So we're joining a team meeting right now. And you'll notice in this team meeting, you have the AI.
Thanks for being here, everyone. As you know, a key goal for us this quarter is to become AI ready by leveraging AI to enhance our work processes. I have Remy here with me, who is leading this initiative. Remy, why don't you start by explaining what is AI in simple words for everyone's benefit?
So you'll notice that the scenarios are scaffolded. What I mean by that is we go from easier to harder within the scenario and within the different use cases within the simulation as well. Here, I'm expected to record my response. So there are different input formats as well. I speak into the microphone, I record my response. The recorder is mindful of different accents as well. You can edit your response once you've recorded it. And then you get a response from the system based on what you've sent them. Now I'll pause here very quickly, bring up the simulation itself, and we can do one very quick scenario or problem statement within the simulation. So you'll actually get a look and feel of what that looks like as well. Allow me a minute. I'm just bringing this up for you. Sorry about that. Looks like I was logged out. I'm just logging back in.
No worries, Khyaati. In the meanwhile, I can see in the chat that people are really looking forward to this. I think they loved the wireframe. They're really excited to see the actual demo in action.
Absolutely. And we've spent 5 minutes on it. It's back up. So I'll just share my screen. And for those of you in the chat, if you want to respond to the simulation, I highly recommend it. I know I'll have to respond for you on behalf of you, but that's okay. We just want to see what a good and bad response looks like within the simulation as well. So I can demo that for you. So I did play through the first two scenarios within the simulation. So you're able to see what it looks like mid gameplay. So here I'm getting an email from my colleague. I'm just going to pick this up. Apparently, we've completed phase 1. Oh, sorry about that. So we completed phase 1 in the last scenario of our simulation. We're going to move to the next scenario. I have another email that's come in. This one, I think. Yes, it's this one. All right. So I have an email from a colleague who's telling me that as part of the campaign to promote this new technology, AI Assist, they've put together a different list of benefits that AI could have. They're asking me to review this, and they want to make sure that I can make corrections and changes to this as well. And we're going to reply to this email. So I'll pause here for a second. I wanted to see if anyone wanted to make recommendations for what needs to go into this email, right? This is not an audio input. This is a text input, but there are scenarios within the simulation with audio input as well. But I will be typing out your answers.
Do we have any brave folks on the call who would like to give this a go?
Yeah, if you do.
Just some pointers.
Just a quick tip, there are some problematic issues with this email, right? What I'm going to do is I'll start typing out the answer. I think some of the pointers need to change. We should not allow, sorry about my text, AI to make decisions without human intervention.
Yeah. I do see a couple of folks have raised their hands. If you can just put your thoughts into the chat, we'll add that as well.
Yeah,
So-
I'm sorry, everyone. We're not able to unmute you.
No worries. I can get you. So Veena is saying AI can suggest the answers. However, it cannot answer all the queries on its own. And Devdeep is saying avoid sweeping generalizations like all problems.
Okay.
Avoid generalizations.
Right. And we are going to send this. Now you'll see that my answers for most bit are correct, but I didn't maybe communicate them effectively. But I do have a response from the chat that says, sorry about that. that the original statements are factually wrong. And AI, we are overstating AI's capabilities in this scenario, and that AI cannot make all decisions independently, right? And my inputs were taken, our answers were correct. However, if our answers were not correct in this and we said, hey, this looks great, I think you've done a good job drafting these, what would happen is the system would push you further to respond effectively, right? Or to ask you to actually pick out what's working, what's not, and how we can course correct it. So what also happens, and we weren't able to see this now because within the demo we were able to answer accurately, is that the system itself prompts you a few times to answer accurately if you're not giving the right answer. And the focus is not just on knowledge, but it is almost on your application of that knowledge. So that's essentially how this works. Now, I know we have 10 minutes and we have a few more slides. So I'll pause here very quickly and just move back to the presentation itself. Aman, I just wanted to also share with the audience what is the report that comes in once we're done with the presentation. Do you want to maybe help us understand how organizations are using this report or talent intelligence as support for the work that they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, while playing the simulation is great, I think what, at least on the organization bit, what a lot of HR leaders, what a lot of business leaders look forward to is this talent intelligence report that KNOLSKAPE is able to help generate, because every action on the simulation is being recorded. It is also not a one size fit all, because, Khyaati, you might take a different direction on the simulation as opposed to me. Everybody gets a personalized report. What this tells people is essentially where you did well, what are some of the improvement areas. Now, organizations use this in different formats, right? Uh, they are probably using some of our simulations as part of a long-term journey or roadmap. So whatever result comes out, it becomes part of that iterative process. So maybe I was part of a new manager cohort, but based on some of the analysis in the report, the company realizes that, hey, I should probably get into one-on-one coaching as well, which was not originally part of the program design. So those interventions can then be added, which makes it a more rounded approach. The other way companies do this is they collate all of this data. They're actually putting it into the AI system that they've built and use it as part of the annual performance feedback or as part of their quarterly feedback as well to get more insights. Some people even go to the extent of using this as a barometer for promotions, etc., to build a learning culture. So organizations take different approaches. Of course, we do have guidance on how you should use it. You can either use a stick and carrot approach, which works great as well sometimes. But that's some of the use cases that I've been seeing. I think one large bank in Malaysia is actually now doing this, where they're actually saying that, your input from these reports will go into as input as one of the inputs for your future promotions as well.
Very cool. That's a very interesting use case. Very radical also.
I know.
And that brings me to the next part. Now we've seen the simulation, we've seen the report and the data that comes out of it. It actually fits into our learning framework or our learning methodology as well, right? Where we call it the 4E framework, but it essentially talks about evaluate, educate, experience, and enable in that format where for AI also specifically, we're able to go in and evaluate what the organizational readiness is, leadership readiness, and learner levels are within the organization. If you have this already, then we take that data from you and work from there. Education is a lot of self-paced content that you can take. If you have Coursera, LinkedIn yourself, then you can bring that in as well. We work well with those formats as well. Like Aman had mentioned in the beginning of the call, we also have a very vast facilitator network. So we can bring in experts and technicians to also do in-person or live online training for you. With AI specifically, we do recommend that it is a combination of behaviors and skills. So what that means is you are doing tool training based on your tech stack, what you want to see as outcomes within your team, but you're also helping them with that mindset where they're able to build with AI or think critically about it, which we find missing more often than not. And then, of course, is the experience piece, our favorite part with the simulation itself. But that's really the first step, honestly. When we look at experiential learning, it does help collect data and reorient the learner. But a lot of times with AI specifically, we've been taking it further. We've been doing hackathons with our clients. We've been doing AI clinics or prompt clinics, as it were, so they can really hone and practice those skills as well. And enablement is, again, to a point about reinforcement, it can't be one off, it can't just be a few days as well. I think it has to be a longer strategic imperative within your organization with support coming in. So we help with coaching support. We've got this lovely AI coach. If you want to see, then I think our teams can set that up for you as well. And of course, a lot of the teams or clients that we work with also love doing action learning projects, so that learning from the first three E's from enable, educate, and experience is really going into that action learning project where the person's applying it on the job and then being tracked on it. Aman, we were able to actually do this with a very large global BFSI firm, and we ran this program with them in Asia. It was a pilot. We are scaling, which is why you'll see that that number 100 plus is a little bit lower on the screen. But what we did was we basically ran a baseline for all the different learners that were going to go through this journey. So it was mostly mid-level managers in backend operations. And for those of you that have worked in APAC, you know, backend operations is people that have done engineering or some sort of have some sort of tech training, right? But even then, when we went in and we did a baseline, we realized that digital awareness specifically for AI was actually lacking. So these are engineers by vocation that are still struggling to identify use cases for AI and then implement it. So that's when our solution essentially was a six-part solution, actually, where we talked about AI in business, so very specific use cases for them. Once we did the baseline, we talked about data. It is really the bedrock of how AI functions. You need good data. So we spoke about that. We did a lot of work with them through our facilitator network for practical tool labs. So how do you use the tools that are already in your tech stack, right? How do you make the most of them? Then the simulation comes in. We see what they've learned. Are they able to really apply that mindset, that AI first, AI ready mindset within the simulation? And then based on that, we also provided them with ALP plans, which they then implemented with their managers and their L&D teams at the organization. And we were actually able to see a 50% jump in proficiency, especially for AI, post this whole journey was over. So we're looking at scaling this across different functions within the organization as well now.
Yeah, amazing, Khyaati. And what I can see is that AI Elevate was used here. So like
Yes.
that, I think what the organization did is went back to the first E on evaluate, made sure
Yeah.
that these managers had basic digital awareness. When they realized that, yes, they do have, that's when AI Elevate, which is our simulation for mid-level managers, came into the play to deliver those results.
Absolutely. And I think why we used Elevate was also because we realized that their baseline understanding of technology and AI is in place. It's just application with their teams or in certain higher level use cases is not translating. Had we found that basic understanding itself was a challenge, then we would have honestly scaled it back a little bit, maybe done AI Edge and then AI Elevate. So it really depends, like Aman said, on the evaluation that we do.
Yeah. And Khyaati, I realize we are almost at time. We have about
Yes,
2 minutes. But I would love
absolutely.
to have more time for Q&A. But would love to get some questions from folks. If there's anything that you want more clarity on, or if there's something you're struggling with within your organization, do let us know. There is also a quick feedback poll that should pop up on your screen right now.
Yeah, and do tell us, especially answer question 3 here, and tell us what you'd like to see from us in our upcoming webinars. If there's any topic that you want to hear about, Aman especially is talking to clients and partners day in and day out, and really has good read on what's going on in the market, especially with APAC. So we'd be keen to bringing those insights to you as well.
Yeah. I do see some questions coming in. Suraj is asking, how can I see the recording of this webinar? So, Suraj, don't worry, it will be sent to you post this call. And
Any other questions?
Khyaati, I know you showed a very exciting demo, but we didn't have a lot of time to go through it. I know a lot of
Yes.
folks on the call will still be curious. So if there's anybody who wants to try this out for their teams or for their organizations, do let us know, do write into us. We'd be happy to give you some demo licenses. You can also speak to our team and get consultation on how best to enable this for the organization.
I think Akansha has a question for us on the certification for the training. Akansha, so we do certify participants on finishing the simulation and going through our training as well. That can also jointly be done with your organization. So it could be a joint certificate. And if you're looking for any third-party certifications that you require, then that's a specific conversation that our team can have with you to understand your needs. Thank you, Devdeep. Thank you so much for joining and being active on this call. I think your inputs were valuable. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Anna. So Sharon also has a question for us. Sharon, the pilot itself required the participants to do about 20 hours of work for their ALP, for their action learning project. And this was spread over a period of, I think, 5 to 6 weeks. So they're not really pressured in light of their current job as well. They were able to take a few hours out every week and do this work. I hope that answers your question. Thank you, Suma. We had a pleasure hosting this for you.
Amazing. I think we are now over the hour mark. Again, a big thank you to all folks joining in from different parts of the world. I can see from the comments this was helpful for you. Again, we'll be analyzing the feedback. Based on your feedback, we'll be figuring out the next topic. But if you need any help, I know someone from the team has dropped in the email ID, which is marketing@knolscape.com. Please drop us a line and we'll get back to you. But thank you once again for joining us today.
Absolutely. And before we stop, I think there are a few more comments. So we'll just very quickly address those. Dr. Rachna, we will be setting up a consultation with you. Our team will be in touch with you. Dr. Ramesh, we actually use our simulations extensively with higher education institutes as well. So we can help you and support you in that. In fact, we started off as a company that made simulations for higher education institutions. So it's a big part of our history. Joel, again, we'll be in touch with you. Thank you so much. And I think with that, I'll also stop sharing my screen. Thank you, everyone, for joining in, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a great day and rest of the week.